welcome to Oakville Matters. Today, what we're going to look at is the difference between the big national charities that everybody knows about and the work that sits in front of our local charities that make the fabric of our community so strong. And we're going to explore the question: how do they get airtime with you? How do they get mind share with you? How do they get your attention, your help, and your contributions? And with us to explore this are Don Pangman, who's the founder and executive director of Art House, and Pamela Massaro, who is the executive director of Meals on Wheels, and Gary O'Neill, who is the executive director of the Kerr Street Mission. Welcome. Thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this conversation. I think this is a really important piece of what makes Oakville and Halton the safest community in Canada. The participation of our community with each other is one of the core tenets of the Peel principles of community safety. Sir Robert Peel was the Prime Minister of Britain, who more than 100 years ago came up with the Peel principles for how to have a strong and healthy society, and he's famous for the policing principles, but more than that, in terms of how do you have a healthy and strong society. And community participation is the bottom root of everything. And you depend upon that. Don, help people understand how you fit in by describing what Art House does, and then we'll have each of you do that, and then we'll talk about the challenges that lay in front of you.
Thank you. We're an organization that is providing free, accessible, and safe arts programs. You name it, we're involved in the different genres of arts, to families that have no access, and kids between the ages of 7 and 17. We're in schools, we're in neighborhoods where there is subsidized communities. We're serving all of Halton now, and this year we'll probably provide programs to close to 2,000 individuals.
Great. And Pamela?
We are Meals on Wheels, has been working in Oakville for over 40 years, and we deliver meals on a daily basis to those who can't prepare them themselves, seniors, those with different abilities. All volunteers deliver these meals and do the crucial safety check that's necessary for this population in Oakville, and we help about 200 people every year with these meals.
So it's 200 a day?
200 over the year, so we deliver about 50 to 60 meals a day. It works out to be about 27,000 meals a year.
Wow. And Gary?
Yeah, so Kerr Street Mission is on Kerr Street. It's a central hub. We call it a catalyst for responding to the needs of people low income in our community. We partner with Art House and many other organizations to make sure that people have the support that they need. And so it's difficult to describe exactly what we do because there are so many things. But we put it into two streams. So family care, helping to reduce the financial burden of families, providing food, providing nutritional programs, providing after-school care. And we also work very hard on developing youth so that they don't end up in poverty.
Yeah, I often think of myself as mayor as playing a role I call chief helping officer, and people come to me, I guess, to help direct them to sources of help. I think of you as Help Central, and that's why I've been a strong supporter of Kerr Street. Don and Pamela and Gary, all of you in your own way provide people who wouldn't have as much social life. You provide them with human contact. You provide them with opportunities to connect and grow their little network and develop a framework of support. In Meals on Wheels, sometimes you provide the only daily human contact a shut-in might have, right? So how do you find the shadow of the national charities that get all the mind share and they raise all the money? How do you find a way to carve out a space for yourself? And maybe we could start by looking at why Canadians give. We have a chart that shows that, and I think we're going to show it to you. And maybe we aren't, but 89% of people feel compassion for those in need. 85% give because they want to help a cause in which they personally believe. 79% are giving to make a contribution to their community. 61% are personally affected by the organization's cause. 27% give to fulfill a religious obligation or belief. And 23% are motivated by the income tax credit they will receive. So the great majority of people, it looks to me like, are motivated purely by generosity. And it looks like the contribution to the community piece is big enough that you might have a successful opportunity there if you can make that local appeal. So, Pamela, how does Meals on Wheels manage? Do you have a problem getting the kind of community support that you need?
Yeah, I think that because it is such a grassroots organization, that the main focus was purely on program delivery. So managing the volunteers, getting them where they needed to be, and making sure that the participants in the program were living independently, effectively with our program. Now that funding has changed, whether it's the region or provincially, we now need to focus on telling stories. And I think that's where we will, for the next 12 months, really be reaching out to the public and in new and innovative ways, whether it's through different partnerships or community engagement, telling the stories of the people that we help. It's not necessarily the population that people are most familiar with. Seniors is that, last resort. I think sometimes when you're thinking about giving, I mean, there's puppies and the kids can flood the airways at times, right? So it's really about getting it out there in people's mind that seniors living at home is important, and having safety checks is crucial to our Oakville community, and it also saves tax-paying dollars by not having them in or using other services that may cost more.
So you're actually an important prop for the idea of care in place, or staying in your home as long as possible.
Yeah.
And the alternative is way more expensive to society.
Yeah.
Are you, Dawn, you're doing vital work in terms of making sure that people grow up connected to the community. Do you want to talk a little bit about your success or challenges in getting support for your group?
I don't want to sound not successful, but at the other side of it is that we're always looking for more dollars because we want to grow. We want to serve a larger percentage of the community. The partnerships, as Gary mentioned, are hugely vital to us. It just builds awareness. I would say sometimes the impediment that we face is that the arts is defined as something that could be looked at as elitist. And yet we know that all the research that we've done about the arts says that it's vital in the human. It helps them become creative. It helps them to build some self-esteem. And it's really important, I think, in this century that everybody has an arts component in their life, because jobs are changing so quickly. The technological market is changing, so we need that kind of creative instinct in all of people. And everybody has that inside them. It's just a question of whether it can be unleashed or not.
And kids are usually very attracted to arts. They haven't been told you aren't artistic yet, right? And or you can't sing, or whatever you eventually get told. They're still exploring art, and so it seems to me that's a good way to get people into the habit of being engaged in activities with other people, because it really the isolation. When we did our community safety and well-being plan, what we kept discovering is that it's in isolation that problems grow, and we have to fight that as a group, as a community. We've got to welcome people into society, in the sense of into community, and make sure that they're not left behind, not left alone. So I see you as the front door or the early door for the population. You may actually reduce the amount of work that winds up on Gary's door. And Gary, how have you found the task of generating local support?
Yeah, telling the stories is so important. We've seen it with Humboldt, Saskatchewan. We've seen as a society with the attack on Yonge Street. When people see that need and they hear about a tragedy or someone struggles, they are very often stirred. Their emotions are stirred, their compassions are stirred, and they give. What we find in Oakville is the poverty is hidden. People don't notice. They might not see people on the streets the way you would in Toronto. They might not notice, the rundown house or the apartment that's not as nice. They might not realize what the struggle is for people to be able to afford the rental costs or home costs in Oakville. So they just don't understand or realize that the need is as great as it is. So for us, the challenge is, how do you tell the story? So I go out a lot and speak in lots of places. We have a column in the Oakville Beaver, but that is still limited. And connecting with people and getting them to think about the struggles of other people is such an important part. So it's also having people tell their friends. So if they volunteer, if it's through their church they're involved, is tell your neighbor, tell your friends, let them in to the circle of what that need is. And then we find people are quite good at responding. The other side of that, though, is people don't realize how great the need is. To have a building like Kerr Street Mission, we've talked about it before, and you know the cost. Most people are shocked at the cost to run a building, to have a staff. The assumption is that it's an essential service, so therefore the Government of Canada is paying the majority of the costs. And that's far from the truth. And so oftentimes it's just letting people know we need their support to be able to deliver the services that others in our community need.
Well, I like the success stories that you tell about how you help support, come alongside people who are in need and help them raise themselves, and creating success stories. Your Live on Kerr event, I think, has been a brilliant success. I imagine you're going to keep doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
But to your point about people not knowing, it always shocks people when I tell them that 45% of all the poverty in Halton is in Oakville. So Oakville is a fully featured community. It has, it's not all mansions. And to the degree that you never leave your neighborhood, you can fool yourself into thinking that Oakville is a monoculture of only your type. But in fact, if you get involved in sports with other parents, you're going to find people from all walks of life and all circumstances, and you're going to discover that they're all good people. The fact that we're in a split-level form of government where we have social services conducted at the regional level in a partnership of let me see, alphabetically, it's Burlington, Halton Hills, Milton, and Oakville. When you live in the local municipality and in your own neighborhood, and it's a lot for you to identify with Oakville, and you hear about Halton, and you're not even sure you want to be part of it, but we are, and we have been since 1972. Mm-hmm. So that's how and it's thanks to that we know where we stand in the rest of Halton. You could say we're more attractive for all levels of society because we also have more of the high end. We've got more of the low end. We've got a bigger share of the low end and a bigger share of the high end. So gosh, we must be livable. Sorry, that's a commercial. Now, when I've delivered Meals on Wheels, I was struck by the human contact piece of the operation. The food is obviously important, but by and large, it was ladies, and they were living alone, and the human contact really meant a lot to them.
Yeah.
How do you tell your story, and is anybody helping you tell your story?
Really good question. I think we try to use our volunteers to spread into their network like so many other smaller organizations do. But we, again, need to build on those partnerships and start working with other organizations and working with local media and local politicians to spread the word about what's happening for Meals on Wheels. Funding is a huge issue for us. And
Well, talk about
Yeah.
your sources of funding
Okay.
and what keeps you up at night. And maybe we can motivate some donors here.
well, what keeps us up at night is that currently we do not have funding from the province. So most of our revenue is actually going to have to come through fundraising this year. So that means building some relationships through corporations and individuals and really trying to garner the support of local residents to ensure that seniors and those with different abilities who can't, make a meal or even, need that daily contact, which is so important for mental health, for all the other things that they need to do to stay living independently. So our major focus will be reaching out to the community in different ways, whether it's through local media. June is Seniors Month, so we're hoping to do some public awareness around that and get donors into the door so that we can continue providing this service.
Now, are all three of you members, if members is the right word, of United Way? And how is your support from the United Way? Are they steady and reliable?
Yeah, from a Kerr Street mission perspective, for quite a number of years, my understanding is that's changed now, but they had a period of time, I think it was October, November, and part of December, where you weren't able to do fundraising to qualify to be a United Way agency. And that, at that time of year, people's compassion and generosity is stirred. We have a really important Christmas program called Christmas Wonders, where we serve over 1,200 people. And so that's a critically important fundraising time for us. So we have not received money from the United Way directly. But we do have a relationship with them. We're talking about some projects now. And currently we're running a program called the Community Youth Action Network, which is funded by United Way.
So you've got a foot in the door.
We have a foot in the door, yeah.
Well, congratulations, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
What about Meals on Wheels?
Yeah, we are a proud partner, and we receive funding through the United Way of Halton and Hamilton, and they do give us funding for our program, so we're very, very humbled to have that. It's a smaller portion of our budget because they do have some guidelines around how much they can fund. So again, it's like most organizations, we are reaching out to the public, to individuals and corporations, and making those partnerships so that we can keep providing these crucial services.
So if the original bargain when United Way started was, we'll stop all the charities from pestering you and we'll only pester you once, which was sort of the founding days of United Way, and then they don't give enough to the organizations. Mm-hmm. It's what you would call in economics a perverse bargain. And I guess that's why they have to change their rule on that. So now it's everybody again.
Yeah, I think there's some businesses you cannot go near, for example, Ford and people like that. But we've been funded by the United Way now. We're in our last year, the 6-year, 2-3-year cycles, and I was very involved in the United Way starting around 1997. So I'm a huge fan of the organization. I applaud them for the amalgamation. And I think the other thing that's really vital about the United Way is that they're serving a lot of organizations that do have difficulty doing their own fundraising, because most of the people in those organizations are on the front line. As I often say, you can't even see the end of the line of demand for a lot of these organizations that are serving our community. Mm-hmm. So I'm all very supportive of what they're doing, and we have a lot of partners within the United Way organization.
Yeah, I was worried when I heard about the amalgamation that the money raised in Oakville might not stay in Oakville for Oakville Charities, but I've been reassured that that does happen. Because on a per capita basis, I think Oakville gives more than the other communities, and Oakville can be proud of its generosity and its charitable feelings. But as I indicated, our need is greater, so I'm glad they are wise enough to keep the Oakville money in Oakville. Mm-hmm. And I just hope that the efficiency of the amalgamation gives a little boost to the output to Oakville. the statistics show that people give to stuff that they believe in. Everybody's going to get old. Everybody faces the risk of becoming, I don't know if there's a polite euphemistic way to say a shut-in, but alone. I wonder if everybody's far-sighted enough to give to keep Meals on Wheels alive.
Yeah. I think that there is a tendency that people think about the here and now. Like, even there's so many conversations about save for your future RRSPs, and that's the last thing you do in your daily life is kind of think about planning for, retirement in your future. So I think we come up against that too within the world of social profit organizations, right? It may not be the thing that's at the forefront of their mind, and you only maybe see it when your parents or your grandparents go through a situation, and that takes time, right? So it's not an everyday occurrence. So we will be, trying to go into those neighborhoods and those apartments and those condos where there are larger populations that we can serve. We're reaching out to churches, trying to do lunch and learns about what we do, because it is more than just a meal. It is a crucial social service that we provide, and the assurance that we give those friends and families. And you did mention that about 75% of the population that we serve meals to are women who are living alone. So if their family is not here in Oakville, and if they're away and we're there every day, we see the minor little changes that could happen with that individual. We're able to contact their next of kin and give them an update. If somebody's not there to deliver a meal, the first thing we do is go through that contact list to make sure that they're okay, because this population is so vulnerable. I mean, you're 90 years old and you have no family who, looks after you every day. In the best case scenario, we would all be looking after our parents, on a daily basis, but that's just not the society we live in right now.
Well, I know that even though everybody ought to provide for the future, there is this old Aesop's fable about the grasshopper and the ant. There are grasshoppers among us, and for whatever reason, and sometimes, you wind up saving, but you lose them because of some disaster that strikes you. So you can wind up innocently in this circumstance of needing. It's not necessarily true that it's your own fault but when I've worked with you guys during your promotional things, I've noticed that the volunteers are very dedicated, and I'm wondering if they wind up being one of your sources of donations.
I think that as we move forward and the need for the organization to fundraise is more prevalent, that I think they will become a great support. They are given a per diem for every day that they do a meal route, and most of our volunteers actually donate that back to the organization. So that's a great revenue stream for us. Yeah. So that shows huge support and commitment. I can't even talk about how amazing they are.
It speaks to that thing about people seeing the need and wanting to help fill it that makes our community very good. Another barrier to giving to local charities is sometimes thought to be trust, and how do you know that you can trust that your money will be wisely used? But aren't all three of you registered with the Canada Revenue Agency, and you can go online? They have an amazing website where you can look up and reassure yourself that the money is actually going into, can I call it rubber on the road? Well, in Meals on Wheels, we could call it Meals and Rubber on the Road.
There's our new campaign right there.
But do you find that it's easy to keep up with that, and have you had any problem with that?
Yeah, there's often times where people are curious and they want to know. They want to make sure not too much money is spent on administration, on fundraising. They want to know that it's going directly to the clients that they're feeling compassionate about, or the neighbors that they're feeling compassionate about. we are very transparent. We, if anyone called and wanted to see our books, wanted to look at our audited statements, we would be happy to share that with them and explain that to them. The reality is, when you get over a certain level of income, it takes a lot of effort. And so, we will get, why do you spend money on marketing campaigns? And then 5 minutes later they'll complain, how come you don't send out enough publications so we know what you're doing? So it's finding that balance of, can we keep people updated? Can we do it professionally? Can it be clear? Can we justify the expense? And what we find in terms of the fundraising is people respond to different things. So some people are really concerned about kids, and maybe they've had a child who struggled in high school, and they were concerned about their future, or a relative who's had that scenario, or someone in their family who's been sick, or a senior who doesn't have a community. And so that they relate to that, and then they become more generous to that. And so we need to do multiple fundraising campaigns or multiple fundraising asks, because people will respond to different things. And so it takes a lot of work, and it does take, capacity. Funding is always an issue, but it's really, a lot of the times it is around capacity. And do we have the people, and do we have the expertise to be able to write the letters, to do the social media, to do a promotional video, to answer questions when people come, to organize the 200 plus volunteers that come on a monthly basis. We're happy to do it. It's fantastic to have them involved, and their passion they're inspiring, because as they get to know people, how much they care and how hard they're willing to work and how they donate as well really is inspiring.
So I think you have a ball tournament.
We do.
How is that going well? Are people turning out for it?
Yeah, so this is, I've forgotten the number of years, but it's the Mayor's Invitational Baseball Tournament. So thank you for that partnership. Me too. It's on Thursday, July 13th. We still have space for a team. This is the first year we haven't had all the spots filled at this point in time because we've been so busy working on other events. But we have 8 teams. We have two terrific sponsors, and we're looking forward to a great day.
Okay, well, I want to thank you guys for coming in and helping the community understand the very important role that our local charities play and the strength of the social fabric of our community. And I want to invite everybody to get involved. Let the strength of our community be increased by the amount of your participation. And if you've got free time and are interested in softball, you can play ball for the community with Kerr Street Mission. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time on Oakville Matters.